And it got to the point where I didn't care anymore. I was like I was sitting there and waiting for him to tell me that he wants to die, because I would have said to him, go ahead, I don't care. When someone manipulates someone and does things like that to keep them, eventually it just doesn't work anymore. They just don't care. On Sunday, the 21st, my father hung himself. So that more than set me back. Actually, what happened is I lost my mind. I wasn't... When my mother died, I was very sad. I loved my mother with all my heart, and I would have done anything for her to be alive. And I always thought that because I hated my father and how nasty he was and mean to us and all the rotten things he did to us and everything else, I always thought that when he died that it would be a relief. But when he died, it's not that it was a relief, it was a shock.
I knew that I needed help, I needed professional help. And it's more than what your support from family is. It's a different kind of help.
Depression can be a psychological reaction to a loss of someone or something very special to us. Those people who retain their independence, even in intimate relationships, deal far better with the separation than those people who are very dependent on their dear ones. They put all the eggs in one basket, and finally, if they lose them by divorce or by death, then usually they fall apart.
June and I have been neighbors for 16 years. We've lived side by side, and we've become quite close. When Gord was diagnosed with cancer, we had just been to a golf tournament together, and we had a really good time, but he had this lump in his chest, and they finally came back with a diagnosis of cancer. June had a very difficult time with it because being a nurse, she knew what he was going to go through. And we expected probably a 2-year illness, and it ended up being 9. He really struggled valiantly, and he couldn't have done it without June. She was there 24 hours a day, every day. It was very difficult for her.
I could see that this was really having a very wearing effect on June. Gord, for all the positive aspects of him, I saw him as demanding, as controlling. And June wanted to be there for him and was committed to be there for him. But at the same time, I saw that she chafed at times because it was so completely demanding of her time and energy and emotional energy.
We were told to get our life together, get our finances in order, and for him to quit work, and our lifestyle would be changing. He refused to do this. He felt he could conquer this himself, and we thought together, me being a nurse, we can fix this ourselves.
She would come out and talk with me and break down in tears every time I saw her.
The last 3 days were of his life, he slipped into a coma, and I knew then that the end was coming. But in my heart, I felt that I could have looked after him forever, even though he was in bed and not able to respond to my wishes.
In the weeks that followed his death, the shock and the reality of her aloneness was very intense. And I think she had to work through not only the grief, but also just the mental exhaustion and emotional exhaustion that had been building up for years.
Women have a great nurturing role throughout their lives, and they are vulnerable to depression when they reach certain milestones, having the last baby, last child going to school, children going off to university, last child leaving home, and even the end of the reproductive cycle. And lastly, men share activities and are very goal-oriented, whereas women share feelings and nurture each other and are very process-oriented. Women tend to invest themselves greatly in any relationship that they value, And when the other person dies, moves away, or disappoints them in the relationship, they find that there's a large void there, which seems impossible to fill.
The hospital called around 3 in the morning and said that she'd taken a turn for the worst. And we came up, got there as fast as we could. I wanted to do anything. I told the doctor, if you need blood, take it. If you need veins out of my arm to make some kind of an artery or anything, take them. I wanted to give her a heart transplant. I wanted to give her my heart so that she could live. But they told me that you can't do that. You can't take a life to save a life when it might reject and it might not work out. And it was Wednesday, April the 18th. My mom died at 10 to 8 in the morning.
Probably Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the most famous of these people, and her theory was that first there is a stage of denial, then anger, then bargaining, and then depression, and then acceptance. The problem with this is that depending on many issues around the individual who's experienced the loss and many variables in the loss itself, people go through those stages in different orders and to different intensities.
I found that I was wishing my life away. I couldn't wait for the next 30 years of my life to end so that I'd be out of there.
Each person has a breaking point and can take so much weight. And for me, it happened that 6 major things in my life were going sour. The government was trying to take away my truck driving license because they were concerned that a manic depressive might not be roadworthy. The bank was giving me a hard time about one thing and another. An insurance company was giving me a problem. I was having some other major problems. And a bill came in from the phone company charging me 27 cents for something I didn't do. And that was it. That was the last little piece. So I sat down here all day by myself thinking. My wife offered me dinner. I said, no, you go to bed. And I'd gotten a bottle of gin because for something like that, that's where my courage came from. I drank the gin, took 2 bottles of aspirin, some Tylenol, and a few other things in the medicine cabinet, and said, that's it. There's no point going on. There's nothing to look forward to.
It is unfortunate that many people who suffer from different kinds of depression and can be successfully treated with medications and different forms of therapy never see a therapist.
At one point, like downstairs, the fish tank is right next to the TV. You'd sit and watch TV in the fish tank, the reflection, because you'd say the colors or whatever was too bright on the TV.
Yeah, I know. And
you read a newspaper once and thought I was putting something in the newspaper that I don't know what it was supposed to be doing to you, but you actually went out and bought another newspaper somewhere else to see if it was the same or if I had done something to that newspaper.
I used to also get secret messages from personalized license plates. But I never told you about that one.
Oh, great.
Top of my job, which I lost. I was master of the lodge for my year. I was at the peak of my earning capability, and I'm wearing my fancy bib and tucker just for the photograph. That's the top. You'll see the bottom.
Therapy changed my whole life. I was a person that had no self-esteem, no confidence. I was depressed, totally depressed. The future I felt I didn't have, I was lost. Seeking help was everything. It improved me to who I am today. It's like I had so much garbage and so much things from my childhood. All I ever did was push it under the rug.